Hi everyone, and welcome to my third round Live Chess 45-45 match. This was a very interesting match because I was able to again have a game that was scheduled later in the week, and so I was able to do some prep and checking out my opponent's openings and seeing what I should play. And I found this very interesting idea because I was pretty sure that my opponent was going to play the closed Sicilian with knight c3 and g3, and so I found this pretty interesting idea on this blog written by a IM for black to play an early f5, and that's an idea like, white is trying to get in f5 when they are when they play this f4 line, and it's kind of like a Grand Prix and they're going for a quick attack, and so if you can blunt that and play f5 yourself, it can be really effective. So I found this blog and I looked up at these ideas. Honestly, this was a tough game for me to prepare for partially because not a lot of people in online blitz play the closed Sicilian, so I didn't get a lot of opportunities to practice against it because people who were playing e4 when I played c5, they just play into the open Sicilian. And if they played a different opening, it might be the Smith-Morra or it might be the Alapin with c3 or something. There weren't a lot of people that played knight c3. So I was a lot of trying to practice against the computer and trying to check out the idea. So it was hard to prepare for this game. But nonetheless, we get into some really interesting positions here. So first, let me just show you kind of the basics of what happens in this game here. So e4, c5, knight c3. My opponent didn't surprise me at all here. g3, g6, bishop, bishop. This is kind of a standard setup, and then f4 is one of the moves that you can play here. My opponent gave me a little scare because they thought for a little bit longer than I thought they would playing f4, since it seemed like this is what they usually played. But f4, and now the unusual move f5. So I have a chess database that has about a little over a million games in it at this point, and only 46 games had f5 in it here. But it can be good for black, and it's less typical. I think probably it's less typical because at the higher levels, in the GM levels, the closed Sicilian is just seen as probably a little too slow, and black has a little too easy of a time equalizing. But obviously at the lower levels, it can be very tough to get going, especially if what you're looking for is a fighting tactical kind of game. So when I came across this idea to play f5 early, it kind of intrigued me to okay, let's get, I'll stop white's idea a little bit of playing f5, and I'll get some, unique positions and some unique lines. So actually my opponent started thinking for a pretty long time here. I had clearly surprised them with this move, and they ended up playing knight ge2. So I just want to look first at, to show you what can happen here. I have a game, so f5, the first time I can find it played, and this IM blog that I mentioned has f5 being played by Bent Larson, and he lost that game actually, but didn't maybe play kind of the best moves. And so there are some people who have played this, some big names. So here's a David Bronstein game where he played f5. So we'll go through real quick just to see it. f5, knight f3, knight f6, castle, castle. This is kind of when this is played. This is one of the typical ways to play it. b3, b6. So the queen's up is something that you can play. You can also play the bishops back to g1 and g8. That's another kind of typical position that you'll see. Bringing the rooks into the game. There go the bishops. e5. So there's a lot of maneuvering, but even here already, let's just stop and take a look. I mean, white's got control of this open file, but it's not going to be hard for black to contest that. Black's got a lot of center control with these good bishops. I mean, of course, so does white. But, black's position has got to be just fine here. some maneuvering around. So now, of course, now black's got control of this file. White resigned here. Black has ended 2 pawns up. These central pawns are going to just start rolling up the board, right? Hard for white to stop here. And you know, there's obviously white dropped some pawns throughout this game, but there's no like major blunders from white here. So it can be a way to kind of fight back against your opponent and take it to them, which is kind of what you're looking for if you're playing a Sicilian anyway. So again, my opponent played knight ge2 here, but I just want to look at some of the other lines real quick. So e takes f5 is something that I had spent some time preparing because it seemed like a natural response, especially if you're going to see this for the first time. It seems like it's probably a testing response. Black can actually get away with g takes f5 here. And there's 2 reasons for this. If queen check, king f8, this is obviously a very natural check for white and something that wants to be played. Interestingly, white kind of needs to retreat immediately with the queen, and in this position white is fine. Black is misplaced. Black is, you know, okay here, actually, surprisingly, but white's got a small, probably sustainable edge here, but I think retreating the queen right away is not a move that you might necessarily consider right off the bat, especially if it's your first time playing this. I mean, here you can say, okay, yeah, you know, black can play knight f6 and kind of harass my queen a little bit, but I don't know, do I need to play back right away? I mean, maybe what if I want to play a move like bishop d2? Maybe I'm gonna think about long castling or something. Knight f3, and now suddenly black is going to be the one who is pushing because they have a lot of harassment that they can do, and they can really kind of push the position. So it's just like, you know, where do you have to put the queen? You have to put the queen back somewhere. You know, knight d4 even, maybe. I mean, you can take and take, but again, like, black is the one that's pushing now, and black is the one that is attacking, and this queen is going to end up kind of out of the way over here on h4. So black's not winning in this position, but now they're the one that has a little bit of an edge. But even with like just bishop d2, let's say, and now maybe where do you put the queen? I mean, again, do you put it on h4 and then it might end up a little out of the game? Do you put it on e2? Okay, now knight d4 is going to come in, right? You kind of want to need to put it all the way back again on d1. But again, this is kind of a little maybe counterintuitive, because maybe you're thinking about long castling already, and do you want to block yourself from doing that? And again, even here, black's king is going to be, you know, okay for a little bit. It's going to end up being okay, and white has a small edge here for sure, but it's probably fine. But if my opponent did play g takes, I was going to go the safer, e takes f5. I was going to go the safer, more practical option, which is to capture with the bishop. And here you're just going to get, you know, another move or two, and people are going to get castled. This kind of strange way to play here is for white is knight d5 with the idea to play into knight d3. But again, that's a little, I don't know if you come up with that plan at your first time seeing this position. Something just like knight f3, knight c6, and you're going to castle, and, you know, now I've got ideas of bringing the bishop over, playing the b pawn up, and things like that. And you're going to get a fine position here. You're going to get into a middle game, and you're going to start, you know, maneuvering and playing. So that was kind of my idea if e takes to capture with the bishop. But instead, my opponent played knight ge2, and again, kind of as we saw in that Bronstein game, knight f3 and f6 is kind of maybe a more typical way to play. You can put the bishop's back here. We saw in that game that the bishops didn't go to g1 and g8 immediately. It took another few moves, but just an idea of how something can happen here. So when my opponent played the knight to e2, I was thinking they were definitely looking for d4, that was something that they were going to try to make happen here. And so to stymie that a little bit, I decided to play knight h6, so I could leave my bishop on this diagonal here. Actually, black can play knight f6 just fine here, because even if the immediate d4, black is going to end up surprisingly being a little bit better here. With the captures, castle, and again, it's not a big edge or anything, but black is just going to be pretty comfortable. Something like even like this, I don't know, is fine. But black is going to be the one who, and let's say if castle maybe, now f takes, and black's king is safe. Black is going to be able to be the one that's going to start to push things. Black is going to have a little bit of an edge here. So knight f6 is certainly fine. I could have gotten away with without a problem. And maybe in retrospect is what I should have gone with. But decided to go knight h6, which is still fine. Castle, castle. Knight h3, stopping the knight coming in from into g4. The idea being, if white tries to play bishop e3 right now, knight g4 just kicks the bishop, harasses it away, and it's got to go, back to d2 or c1 or somewhere. It's just a little bit of a wasted move. I think that h3 is actually a little maybe inaccurate from white as well. This is not maybe the best way to go. I think probably actually the king here. So again, you can have this kind of maneuver, bring the bishop over, or maybe even just start to move with the knights right away, since I'm not contesting this square, since my knight is on h6 instead of f6. Take advantage of that a little bit. h3 I think is just a little inaccurate, a little slow and unnecessary, but not losing is completely fine. So I kind of decide to keep going with my plan a little bit here. Some other moves I could have considered, moving the bishop maybe off this diagonal and committing to this game plan of playing on the queen side a little bit. But still fine. And so my opponent is really saying, now I really want to go in for d4. Like, that's the break that I want to try to make. And I got pretty fixated on that idea. In fact, here I even started to consider e5 to just lock this down. It turns out this would have been not so great a move. There's a lot of lines in here that I didn't find in my analysis, but the computer evaluation starts to swing pretty quickly. Like here, my first idea was like this kind of position, and okay, c5 is hanging, so you've got a little bit of a problem there. But I, something like this and takes and knight takes maybe. I kind of thought, like, I don't know, how bad can this really be? But the computer at least likes white a lot better, like 1.5-ish. So there's a lot of, like, deep, subtle lines in here that make things a little bit tricky and difficult to analyze. But so I played. Let's say though that even like. So my idea with bishop e6 was, if d4, I'm going to have some kind of tactic bringing the queen to b6. The problem is that I'm missing now that with a knight on d4, this bishop is going to be hanging. So let's pretend a6. Let's just like, not that this is a completely useless move for black because it helps control b5, but like let's I don't know, make a waiting move for a minute. If white plays d4, take. Bishop takes is a little nonsensical because I'm going to be able to swap off this bishop And after knight takes queen b6, obviously black is, gonna go up a piece here. But even if knight takes, you can play queen b6 now. And the lines here start to get really a little nutty. Let's say like knight takes to try to protect the bishop, maybe. Queen. Like even here, you can't guard this bishop because I'm going to take. So these lines, you have to kind of maybe play knight d5 here a little bit. And the lines start to get like really funky. Like bishop takes, knight takes, check, king h2, bishop takes b6, and the computer gives white, plus 0.8, something like this. So they've got an edge here. But again, black is going to have some harassment, and they're going to have some pushing and some attacking. I don't know that I would have gone in for this if knight d5. I don't know that I think I probably would have played maybe queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3, maybe something like this. And here white is probably already, again, has a little bit of an edge here. So actually knight takes is probably okay for white as well. But I ended up playing bishop e6, kind of following with the same idea. The problem is now that after knight takes, you don't even have queen b6 here anymore because of here. This is hanging, and you're also going to lose. Like now you've got this knight is attacking both of these, so you're gonna. What are you gonna give up your what's supposed to be a really good bishop here, or sack the exchange, or you're in a tough spot. So this is what happened. This is the game line, and I had to kind of retreat. And black is not dead here. This is not a fatal mistake, but white's going to end up having a little bit of an edge. So actually here, you can play knight d4. You can get away with this here. Capturing for white is obviously a little bit of a bad idea. Again, they're giving up this dark square bishop, which not only does that mean that my dark square bishop becomes great, but like that's gonna, that's a defensive piece for them at this point. So this would not be superb. If you play the knight in here, you're gonna lose the knight. So you have to play it. You can play it to b5 and you've got a problem still. So you've kind of got to play it back this way, which is annoying. So white kind of has to leave that knight there. Maybe play to d2. And now I can play bishop e6. Now I don't have a problem on d4 because white can't push d4. This ends up okay for black. Yeah, this is coming. Oops, bishop b7 is coming, but after rook, and now this is hanging. So knight d4 is probably the move that I should have played here, which was not even in my mind. Again, I kind of thought that I had seen this tactic with queen b6, and I just missed that the bishop would be hanging. So that's on me. So after bishop b6, and again, not awful for black, but white's certainly comfortable in this position. My biggest mistake really comes after. So white's got to do something, because now I can play queen b6. Queen b6 is hanging around a little bit in the position. For example, let's just give white a waiting move. You can play queen b6 here, and now this kind of idea doesn't work anymore because I've got the bishop on this diagonal. And after something like this, again, queen b2, this is going to come. And now I'm on this diagonal, my bishop's here, so I can play queen takes a1. So white's got to do something about queen b6. So king h2, kind of just getting the king off that diagonal. And here, black is, it doesn't look like it, but black is in a little bit of a weird spot. Because I put my knight on h6, it doesn't have as much control in the center. And it's, you start to find a hard time for black to find a good plan. So the computer actually wants you to play queen a5 here to, I think, connect the rooks. You can bring this rook to d8. The queen's got its eye on f5 if white starts to exchange. But that was not a move that was ever really in my head. I came up with this idea, and what's tough for me, and I think what's tough for a lot of people, is correctly evaluating positions in your head when you're looking at future lines. I know that that's a problem I have really frequently, where I'll look at a line and I'll think, here are the moves, and I think this is going to be okay for me. And then I get to that position, and then a few moves later, I find I've incorrectly evaluated this position. This is not great. This is not as good for me, as I thought it was. And that's what happens here. I have this idea with knight takes and e5. And I was thinking that white would capture, and I would capture. So I was thinking knight takes d4, bishop takes e5. And I was thinking f takes, move, queen moves, and then, my rook's going to come, and I'm going to get control of the d file, and it's, things are going to be fine here. And that's true. Things are fine here in this position for black. But I didn't really consider in this position for white to just chill out, just relax. And here, black is not even dead here. Black is not in real problems here at all. But because I hadn't considered this kind of a waiting idea, I was having a hard time, coming up with a plan. I probably should have really stopped and taken a moment here. So I think that's another good lesson, is to just stop, and when you're presented with something that you maybe didn't think about, really take the time to kind of sit with it for a little bit. But again, to go back to my point about poorly evaluating positions, I think really the only way to get better at looking at a position and understanding positionally who's better, what does it mean, how should I evaluate this kind of line, is to do analysis like this, and to look at your game, go over it afterwards, play out some moves, check your books, then check with the computer. Really try to build, okay, here's what I think I should have played, and then turn on the computer and then go, oh, I missed this, or I missed this. If you immediately jump to what the computer says, you're never going to be working to build your positional understanding and your evaluation skills. So here, something like f takes e4 seems a little unnatural. It seems like I'm helping white's light squared bishop to start to get into this game a little bit. And if you remember a few minutes ago, I said this position is tricky because a lot of these lines are, the evaluation of them can swing, and it's really hard to see. And it's a lot about, in this position, it seems to be a lot about the momentum and who's being able to attack. Because after bishop takes, you can play d5 here. It doesn't seem like you should be able to, because white's got 3 pieces on it and black's only got 2 pieces on it. But if let's say if knight captures, e takes, bishop takes, now suddenly you've somehow randomly got a problem here. If g5, like the computer is telling me this is -2 for black, and I just started to try to play some moves to try to understand what happens here, and it's very hard to find these evaluations and find these lines here. Okay, so white has ended up a piece here. Whoops. white's got this extra bishop. But this like g5 line, this like g5 idea, if white takes, is like kind of a little bananas to try to see. So the idea that you can play f takes here, which is dependent on if bishop takes on g5, is like really tough to see. So if bishop doesn't take, like if knight takes here, now you've got this. I did see something like this, but I couldn't make this work where I'm attacking. I'm kind of skewering a rook or a bishop on a bishop. So if rook takes here, rook takes is the right move here, and now you're equal. But like this position is, while the computer might call it close to equal, is obviously like can turn very wild and is sharp. It can move in either direction very quickly. So I didn't think that, I didn't really think through this kind of idea because it didn't seem like I could get away with playing d5 here. So I ended up playing queen e7 with the idea to kind of maybe bring my rook over at some point. This is okay. This is not where I made my like fatal mistake, but it's just a little too slow. And especially in this position that I chose to go into, but also in general, a lot of times, and this was true when I was looking in prepping for my Dutch last week, a lot of times the best defense is a good offense, is to be aggressive, to create your own threats. And I think that sometimes it's hard for people to do that. They start thinking about themselves so defensively as opposed to thinking about like, what problems can I generate for my opponent? And it's hard for me too. But I think that this idea is just a little slower, and it's not outright losing, but it leads me to this place where I'm constantly defending and thinking about defending and making concessions in my position, as opposed to saying like, okay, well, what can I do against my opponent that's going to be tricky, excuse me. So that's the ending position there. So here my opponent plays queen d7, and so I just missed that a tactic. I just missed that this is setting up on not a double attack, but like setting up on this battering ram on this diagonal. So I missed that f takes e5 is a big threat here, partially because I'm thinking about my backwards pawn here, and I'm thinking, okay, queen d2, that makes room for the bishop to come over. I've got to think about ways that I can defend this. So I played b6 with the idea of, if knight b5 to come in on this bishop, I can play a rook over. After a rook over, I can play a6, and white doesn't really have the time to take because I can play knight f7, and if bishop takes, something like this. And maybe there's a wild line in here where something like this, like maybe there's a wild endgame in here somewhere, and maybe white's okay. In fact, the computer really likes white here, but this kind of position, at least, it seems like if black can create some problems, is easier to play maybe for black. Now maybe not, I don't know. The computer really seems to like white here, but that was kind of my idea, at least with queen e7. And after rook, my idea was kind of similar again. The problem, of course, is that's not what my opponent was thinking about playing, and I just missed a tactic here, which is f takes e5, and now you've loaded up on the knight, and now I've got a problem. And the other thing about this position that I've chosen and set up in is, if I don't get my attack in and I let white in a little bit, my position is going to fall apart very quickly. So actually in the commentary, I was whispering to the spectators, and kind of around at this point I said something like, man, if I defend really precisely, maybe I can get out of this, but it seems like white's just going to roll me over, which is what happens after this move, because, okay, I'm only going to end up really I've only given up a pawn here, if I give this away. But everything is coming so quickly now because white is really set up to just unleash this attack on me. So it might look like in the moment, oh, okay, it's a pawn, I'm sacrificing a pawn, but no, it's quickly going to get out of control. So knight f7, e takes f5, very strong, by far the strongest move. I was getting very worried about knight d5, queen takes, bishop, something like this, which is actually much preferable to where I ended up in the game, even though it's white's still better there. And you don't actually even have to take bishop here. I mean, like, this is the move that that white should always be looking to play. So nice strong move by my opponent. Clearly I've got problems here. Even initially I was thinking like, okay, well, like, this is a problem, like knight, and like this is a problem somehow. But my bigger issue is obviously this fork that I'm living in right now. So how do I deal with this? And I end up playing knight takes here to try to sacrifice the exchange and try to maybe get out of this and create some threats. And so in this position, my only kind of advantage, my only kind of try, is to try to keep things complicated and try to come up with my own threats. Obviously it's a little too late for that, but practically speaking, but if I can do anything, if I'm going to have any shot, that's the way it's going to be, to try to keep pieces on the board, to keep it complicated, to come up with some tactic. My opponent here also was starting to, I had a pretty big clock advantage, so they were starting to get low on time. So again, I was thinking, if I'm going to win this game, it's going to be because they might let me have a tactic somewhere to get back in this game. So I give up this. This is actually not the move that the computer wants you to play. The computer wants you to play bishop g5 by a pretty high margin. It's stronger than the previous move. Because after bishop f6, takes, queen takes. Now when you take here, and I recapture something like knight e4. So what does this accomplish? Well, for one thing, you get more pieces off the board. So as the defender, I want my pieces on the board so I can to defend. And for another thing, you're starting to come in. So I mean, if I don't play bishop f6 here, let's say for example, I don't know, what if I try something else? What about queen c7? That looks like a safe square, right? Well, f6 is coming in now, and now I've got a serious problem. So, not that I didn't have serious problems before, of course. My opponent plays take here, and here I played queen b7 with the idea of looking at f3. But I have a real problem here with this rook. This rook never gets into the game. So I think that I really should have played maybe queen c7. Again, just from a practical standpoint of trying to get this rook into the game at any point. So if here and f6, bishop f7, maybe knight e2, and I can play, well, that's probably not the place for it, but I can play, I don't know, maybe to e8, to try to get it a little more active at some point, to do something, because it never gets into this game. Queen b7, and yeah, simply queen g2 stops my threat. And now I've only got really a square that I can put my queen if I want to try to keep things complicated. I can play takes, h6 maybe. But again, trading off pieces and getting rid of things is kind of helping my opponent in this case. So queen c8, but now this rook is completely blocked, and I'm going to lose it a few moves down because there's just nowhere for it to go. It can't get anywhere. So my opponent continues to play very strongly. f6, great move, just pressing forward. And here, bishop e6 sets me up with a problem. Another mistake here. It overburdens my queen. What else do I play, though? I mean, maybe I play the rook. Maybe I play a6 with the idea, but black just is so overwhelmed here that black doesn't have a ton of great ideas. I could play bishop f7 maybe to stop the advance of this pawn, but black is just having such a hard time here. There aren't really enough good ideas. There aren't really enough threats here for black to try to create any counterplay. So let's see how my opponent is able to nicely finish this off. Yeah, and honestly, what do they even need to do here? I mean, they can play f7. That's fine, and after bishop g7 is kind of something I need to play right. They can even play bishop f6 in here. Again, really just trying to bring everything, getting rid of my defending pieces. But they don't even have to do that. Just a6, again, like, how does black make progress here? It's hard for black to find things to do here. Even the computer's top line, which is bishop c4, like, okay, fine. This is still a nice, easy game for white. They don't have a lot of problems, and it's hard for me to generate them. So my idea is knight f7 to block this pawn this way, but this sets up a problem for white because, again, or for black, because white's overburdened. Black's overburdened here. The black queen is overburdened. So, like, again, this is, I don't lose material here. I can't take this, obviously. If I play take. Okay, now black's in a pretty tight spot. But so I haven't lost material, but just losing defending resources and being able to create fewer and fewer problems for white to try to solve is, not doing me any favors. And here I make a mistake with rook b8. This rook, though, I mean, there's no way for it to get into the game, even if I tried to play a6 or a5 and put the rook here. I mean, the knight is still coming to this square. So yeah, what does black do? I mean, again, there aren't really any good plans for black here. I mean, I could play d5 maybe to try to get my rook active, but it's all too little too late for black now. So here, this interesting idea of takes, and if white can take and push, it's game over. So I think that's why white doubled up here to give another attacker on e5. So I've got to make space for my king, and this is what happens. So I've got to make a little space for my king, and I'm just trying to make any problem, see if I can open the king up, get anything in here. It's not really working. There's one interesting moment here, where white lets me play this move. So now, the idea here is I'm trying to tempt white to play rook e8 check. Okay, if king g7, then white wins. No problem, checkmate. But black doesn't have to play king g7 here. Black can play king f7. And now, white's got to be very careful. I mean, I've got a mate in one that's waiting in the wings. So if white gives me a free move, that's coming. So what can white do here instead? Even something like queen e7 obviously fails to the bishop, but queen h7. This is probably white's best move. Let me take this rook. This is going to end up being a weird and unusual endgame. I mean, white's got these pawns, and they're going to go, and I've got the bishop, but it's not I don't know. This would be a really long, drawn out endgame fight to see what happens here. Um, so that's kind of like how I was hoping that maybe I could tempt white into this. But just the simple queen g2 or rook g2 is great and fine and solid. Takes away my attack on this square, and again, white has no problems. So that was kind of my last problem to try to create. And here I just kind of, my idea is to prevent. My idea with b5 is to take control of this square to prevent this move, but that gives me some serious problems. But again, even if I play something else, even if I try to play like a5, white's just got an easy and happy and comfortable, like whatever. White can do whatever they want, basically. I mean, even b4 here is fine because take. Let's say I play take here, that's no good. I go to h6, and we go to f4. I go to h8. We go to f6. Come up. We go here. So there's a lot of ways for white to simplify here. So b6 now is a mistake, and queen f4, a great finishing move here. I resign here. The idea is, again, I can't, if any king move loses the bishop. King h7 here, king g7, obviously the same place, king h5 just here. And after g5, queen check, if I move the king down, again, white's just, okay, got no problems here. I can't create any issues for white. They're going to clean up the board. They're going to start rolling. Their king is protected. Like, there's nowhere I can get anything in here. And if I move the king up to h5, well, I will leave that as a little puzzle for you to figure out how that is just doom for black. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, if you have recommendations for things you'd like to see, streaming Blitz, or interacting with viewers and analyzing their games, or endgame studies, whatever you'd like to see, leave it in a comment, and I will try to make some videos on that. Again, I want to recommend, if you're looking for an opportunity to play long chess, the next 45-45 league on Light Chess, when it comes up in a few weeks, I would keep your eye open for that and join. I can't recommend it enough. It's a great opportunity to play some long games during this time and to get to do some analysis and get to do a little bit of prep, which is not something you get to do when you go to an OTB tournament. You can't like prep your games against an opponent, really. And this, I've really enjoyed, like, being able to look at my opponent's profile, coming up with a plan. What do I want to play? Going and studying that position a little bit. Obviously, it didn't work out for me this week, but the past weeks have been really fun. And you get some great games, and it's a great community. So I recommend that. And with that, I'll sign off, and I'll see you all next week.